Welcome to Bible Study for Progressives, a show where moderates, liberals, and leftists of all faiths and ideologies come together to discuss Scripture, spirituality, and politics. We engage Scripture in its historical context, plumb its depths for wisdom and guidance, and apply its lessons to current events and social issues. Whether you're a liberal evangelical, a New Age spiritualist, a social justice activist, or a postmodern theologian, there's something in this show for you. Come, be energized in spirit and mind to understand the Word and what it means to be a spiritual person in today's world.
Just so grateful today to have Rich Procida, Procida, on my talk show. He's a constitutional lawyer and has worked with Social Security admin out of California to help people. And also, too, he does Bible studies for progressives. Very important integration of Christianity at this time of Christmas, I'd say, on the planet. So welcome, Rich. Thank you so much for being on my show today.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, anyway, okay, I wanted to also make reference to the groups, the partnerships, actually talk about the partnerships with impeach.org and how you feel about them and what's going on, and with your constitutional background, go ahead.
Well, we impeached Donald Trump on Tuesday night. We had a great rally, not Tuesday night. We had a great rally on Tuesday night. We impeached him on Wednesday. And we had around 300 people show up, and we sung impeachment carols, and it was fantastic. We had signs, and around the nation, hundreds of thousands of people showed up in towns all across the nation to
600
support,
cities, yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and to support the impeachment of Donald Trump. And the reason they did this, the reason we had to impeach Donald Trump, was because if we keep it, the rule of a criminal will continue to commit crimes if you don't stop him. And that's just the rule of thumb. And this is what it shows, that Donald Trump tried to benefit from and get Russia to interfere in the election, and to benefit from that, and to seek it out, and to verbally request that Russia interfere. This is to encourage another nation to commit espionage against one's own country. So this was the height of treason, the height of disloyalty. This nation, he was disloyal when he failed to give Congress the documents, when he obstructed Congress. He was treasonous when he tried to get a foreign country to intervene in our elections. He abused his power by withholding money and trying to use that as leverage to get an investigation of Joe Biden. And that's a very important fact. Not only are these allegations against Joe Biden old, they're not new news, they're not being investigated by the United States. We don't need to have a foreign country investigating. But it's Joe Biden. And what's most frustrating to a lot of Americans is to see half of America, they can not really consider this basic fact that he sought to get dirt on Joe Biden and start to harm his political rival using federal public money and his position of power in conflict with the United States interests in the region. This is a bit important fact, and if people want to say, well, it was okay to investigate Joe Biden, maybe he isn't perfect, and maybe his son shouldn't have been on the board. But right now, we have a rogue president who has violated the law in numerous attempts, not just this one. This is just the last in a pattern of behavior. And it's not just the Miller Report, both patterns of trying to get foreign countries to intervene in our election and basically to overthrow our democratic form of government. And this is one of the very serious things that we talked about at the rally, which is that we need to defend democracy and fight and defend the Constitution, or else our whole democratic system is at risk. We can't expect to preserve our democratic institutions if we're not willing to defend the Constitution. If we want to fight our democracy, it's our very form of government. This is the basic foundational elements of the system of checks and balances are at threat. And Donald Trump has gone through new heights to obstruct Congress, not giving a single document, not allowing any witnesses. I mean, these are obvious things that are happening, and yet people overlook them for their own purposes, for their own, what the Bible calls that itching ears, that there's a verses in 2 Timothy that say, for the time is coming when people will not put up with sound doctrine, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own desires and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander away to myths. So, and this seems to be, I'm not sure if that time has not been always, but it is particularly in this time where the fake news and turning away from the truth and not seeing the obvious facts. He just went after Joe Biden because he was his political rival. It's that simple. So once we recognize...
I was just wondering about the lies. You know, they've got these lies that have been, and misleading propaganda, you know, and I would like to hear your comments about that.
Well, yeah, that's been a problem. We have two groups of people. One who we're all in a sort of bubble, and it's really hard to tolerate the lies. So we have two sort of people groups of people locked in their own bubble. You got the Fox News crowd, and they could be told anything, and they'll believe anything they're told. And then you also have some propaganda on the left, because you can listen to certain things that they say, like, for instance, there was this criticism that came out when Elizabeth Warren mentioned to Pete Buttigieg in the debate that he's taken this big money donors. And then we get MSNBC, I was listening on them talking about how ridiculous that is. But it's not ridiculous. It's exactly what Bernie Sanders did the last time around. Elizabeth Warren is joining him on that. There is a problem with money in politics, and Americans see that. And it is important to Americans. But we get a propaganda stream from the Democratic Party as well. So we're inundated with propaganda, and so we have two realities, two worldviews, and neither of them are completely right, but the right is just just lie after lie, falsehood after falsehood, and they just swallow it up. And I don't think that's because, I think it's because there's something wrong with them. There's another verse in the Bible that where Jesus denounces the Pharisees, and he says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you lock people out of the kingdom of heaven, for you do not go in yourselves, and when others are going in, you stop them. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross sea and land to make a single convert, and you make the new convert twice as much a child of hell as yourselves." So you still with me, Lynn?
Yeah, so a child of hell. Okay.
Right, child of... So this is Jesus talking about the Pharisees, but really this is a warning about religious people. And not that religion and politics are separate, certainly not in the Bible, and not in the ancient times it wasn't. So it's about political leaders and the hypocrisy they show. And so we have a whole bunch of Christians out there who basically are full of hatred for other people, and they go all over the world to try and make converts, and then they turn them into hateful, spiteful, evil people. And so that's why we have people wanting to put homosexuals to death in different countries. This has been going on for a long time, but two separate groups of people with their own realities. And there's no way to meet in the middle because we're being affected by propaganda. And this comes from the Supreme Court's a number of decisions, but one that reversed the fairness doctrine so that media outposts don't have to provide the other point of view. And then the other one is Citizens United, where they allowed massive...
Do you have information on that? So you call that the fairness doctrine. Then we've got the impeach.org, and why we have to impeach because of all the takeover of all of our real democracy and destruction by the elite that are owning and operating under hate, a lot of it, or just power manipulation and control that to divide and conquer. There's not love there. Could you talk about it biblically too, since it's, we had that Christian come out, what was it, Christianity Today, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and Vote Vets, everyone, votevets.org, and they're into impeachment too. In fact, they went so far as to say impeach Trump, and President Trump bar Mitch McConnell. Anyway, those three that they really feel strongly that they're misrepresenting our country and that our children are being taught to defend and protect and follow these people that have all these lies out there and that really are not Christians, really, or real Jewish, or real Muslims, or Hindus, or Baha'is, or Buddhists. They aren't really loving. They aren't about God within. The answer's within, and the kingdom of heaven within. So could you talk about that?
Well, the vets, they're out on the front lines. They're putting their life on the line, and they don't want somebody who's corrupt, who can abandon them like he abandoned the Kurds, who's on the side of his enemies, our enemies, who's undercuts our spies and our agents and hurts our national interest. They want somebody who's responsible and in control because this person is sending them to dangerous situations. But one of the things is that I wanted to go to the democracy thing and how we know that the rich get their way and that the masses of the people, that we can support climate change things, we can support universal health coverage. The majority of Americans support all these programs, and yet they don't see the light of day because the rich and corporations are in control and have been in control for a long time. Now, there has been some semblance of democracy that we have. We do not have a full and uncorrupted democracy. There's too much money involved, and we've got the mistake of thinking everybody has to pursue their interests. And then the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court plays a huge role here in allowing money to just be poured into and stopping all our reforms. There have been numbers of attempts when Democrats were in power to limit campaign finance spending, to regulate that, to publicly fund campaigns, and the Supreme Court has stymied that at every step. And then they even gave corporations individual rights as if they were individual citizens. So thereby giving unlimited amounts of cash. It's amazing. If we want to donate money, it's very restrictive. We have a limited amount of money we can donate to a campaign. But the super PACs, it's just a way for the rich to control. And then So we've had corporations in charge. They've been sending our military to, as you know, Lynn, to third world countries or in the
177 countries we're in. And then Annie Jacobson, you can YouTube Annie Jacobson, she said 184. So it's safe to say absolutely 177. So go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and we're still doing it, particularly under Trump. So where these corporations, for their own interests, oil companies, and we've had the idea of blood for oil. So all this is, the corporations have been in control and benefiting from this corruption and influence. Though we have had some democracy, we are able to vote. We have made some progress. Our votes are counted. We get the accurate vote, even if our system doesn't produce the president with the majority vote. We're not having our ballot boxes stuffed. So we do.
But
have
how do you
democracy.
use your constitutional lawyer background with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, that these people are not only pledging to promote one nation under God? That means that if we're in 177 countries with military for freedom and justice for all, I mean, how do we, get all of them accountable for, God? I mean, God is love and all divine, caring, sharing, honesty, everyone, integrity, and forgiveness, 7 times 70 in the Bible, right?
Right. So the one thing I wanted to point out about the democracy being taken over by corporations is that it's not a short step to have it taken over by a family or by an individual. So if we envision this as a takeover, a corporate takeover, hostile takeover, that President Trump has come in to take over the White House, and that it's hard to really pinpoint and say Trump is in cahoots with Russia, but he seems to be overly influenced by them. And this very Ukraine scandal is something that Putin had put in his mind. It's Russian propaganda that not only our president is promoting, but the Republicans are also promoting it and arguing it. So it's not too far of a jump from a corporate control and power to an actual takeover of our government. Now, it's proving to be a little more difficult because we have a system of checks and balances. And finally, thank God, Pelosi has gotten on board, and we've got all the Democrats to come together to confront this president. He made something stupid, which was completely predictable that he would do. And now the idea that this is somehow simpler, and there are a whole lot of other things that he did that he could be impeached for, particularly in the Mueller report. And I think they're going to continue those investigations. But I don't really have a problem with it being narrowly based. At this point, I'm going to let Nancy Pelosi and those people, going to the Bible, if we go back to Matthew 23, verses 23 to 24, it says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint, dill, and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. It is these you ought to have practiced without neglecting the others. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat but swallow a camel." I mean, a lot of these things really apply to our situation here. Justice is mentioned twice as many times in the Bible as is love, and even love metaphor as a sort of a message. But I wouldn't separate love and justice out completely. They're not two separate things, because loving our enemies is to be just towards them. So, but here, look, they are swallowing, they're so teed up in having the right doctrine and the right beliefs, and yet they're willing to swallow so many lies, so many falsehoods, so many, so if we go back to the actual trial in the Senate, so people need to be aware, first of all, that there are two processes. There's impeachment, which is like an indictment, and then there's the trial in the Senate. So the president has been impeached, and the House has the sole authority, the sole ability, power to impeach. So people think, oh, he's not going to be impeached. Sometimes they equate that with removed from office. No, the trial and the removal are a separate procedure in the Senate. Now, that procedure is quite formal, and it's not going to be as easy as Mitch McConnell makes it seem to just have sort of a kangaroo court, and not have any witnesses and not have any real testimony and just try to make a big joke out of this when we're going to have the Supreme Court, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, will preside over the trial in the Senate. Now, I'm pretty sure that Chief Justice Roberts is not interested in presiding over a kangaroo court or some type of farce of a trial. Now, Nancy Pelosi is withholding the articles until she gets some assurances that there's going to be a fair trial, and this is what people need to demand now. We need to call our senators and demand that there actually be a fair trial, not just a farce of a trial, not just the Republicans dismissing the case or trying to make it seem silly. This is going to be a formal process. Now, the Senate is different than the House. The House has always been very rancorous and divisive, but the Senate is supposed to be a more solid, stable, sort of stoic institution in which the senators are less argumentative and less rancorous. So there may be Republican senators who, especially in swing districts or purple districts, who want to hear the evidence. And then we have Trump. Not only did he not provide documents and tell his people in his department not to testify and withhold witnesses and not respond at all to another branch of government that has co-equal powers and is charged with oversight over the executive. He's trying to say they have no power over him, like Adam Schiff said, a paper tiger. It cannot do anything.
Let's get down to it. It's even worse than that, okay? Let's just get it raw out there because, I listen a lot to both sides of the progressive and conservative radio, and I hate to jump in right there, but I have to because I'm just despondent with the obfuscation of the rights and the truth because of what's been going on for a long time in the system, that really has gotten corrupted. And this right versus the left has to be addressed. And so as a constitutional lawyer, how do you address that it goes on and on, that I made a list of some of the allegations against the left. And since you are Bible Studies for Progressives, it's just so important. And then corporate accountability out there.org is a really important site too, because they've got that all lefts, get this, are into infanticide.
Anti-Christian.
They say it. I'm just telling you, you can go back in Rush Limbaugh's, I take notes on these different conservative, right-wingers, and I take notes. I have notes on them. Proliferating hatred for all Democrats, all lefts. They equate, they've got people thinking that, hey, you better grab a gun and, they can advertise. And the weird thing is they are just doing it over and over and over, building these just hatred for the other side.
Yeah. Yes, I want to, Christians have become more about what they're against rather than what they're for. If they're for, they become against cultural things rather than for love, for community, welcoming the stranger, welcoming the refugee. They've become more about what they're against. And I wanted to get back to something before the end here, is that removal from office is possible. And oftentimes, I'm sort of psychic. I have a premonition. I knew an omen. My premonition of impeachment is why I went forward so ardently and with as much energy as did, because I had a premonition. Now, this premonition is an omen of a bad thing, because impeachment is a bad thing, no matter which way you're looking at it. It's bad that we have to impeach the president, because what it means is that our democracy is under threat. Our very way of life and our very system of government is under threat. It's not a good thing. And so either way you look at it, it was an omen. It's a bad thing. So removal is possible. I don't think Supreme Court, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, is going to tolerate or very easily tolerate a kangaroo court. And while it's important to defend the Constitution and fight for democracy, because when our democracy is threatened or when we're threatened, if we just roll up our hands and say, oh, we're not going to prevail, we're going to lose, we're just going to give up, that's not the way that you run a government. That's not the way you live as a person. Sometimes you've got to fight back despite the odds. But the other thing is, we don't necessarily know the future. Sometimes I have a premonition and I know the future, but that's a premonition. But generally, people sometimes assume, oh, he's not going to get removed. Well, the odds are he's not going to get removed. But that's odds. That's not the reality. There's what he probably will happen, and then there's what will happen. If there's anything that this process has told us, is that we don't really know. People are saying, oh, he's never going to get impeached. And yet, here we are. The Miller report, it wasn't the Miller report. He did something stupid later on, which was completely predictable, but yet people didn't realize it. So we get this idea that we're so sure that we know what's going to happen, but the truth is we don't. And I face this as a lawyer all the time. I have to tell my clients, I can't turn water to wine. I can't make something that's not. I don't know the future. I can't predict the outcome of your case. It's not always predictable. So these types of things are not predictable. And I don't think this is going to work out ideally for the Republicans that they think it will, because this is a formal procedure. And the American people, there's a poll out there that said 70% want a fair trial, and Trump should have witnesses, and we should have witnesses, we should have testimony, we should have documents that Trump has refused to provide. And if the American people allow him to stonewall, then I don't think the American people are going to tolerate that. So there's a possibility that he can be removed. But even if he's not removed, we still fought for the Constitution. We did something to hold him up, something to back him up, to make him back up. And we're going to have to continue that fight.
I think we're supposed to bring in divine government, new era of peace. A few minutes left. Go ahead, Rich.
I wanted to point out, because this interference in our election is ongoing. It's not stopping. We have fought against it, and we may have slowed it down, but there are reports that they're going to try and divide us over religion. Now, they've been doing that for a long time, but it's important for us to be aware of that. There's this movement now to sort of equate Christianity with nationalism. And while there may be some reason to label something Christian nationalism, the fact is, we don't want to be in a conflict over Christianity.
We have couple more minutes. Anything else you want to close up here with, Rich?
Well, yeah, I think our audience needs to be aware that people are trying to divide us based on religion, and we don't want to be in a conflict with Christians against the rest of us. Right now, the new article on Christianity Today showed that there's room in Christianity for criticism of Trump, for change, and there are people who are Christians, like my mother, who really don't like Trump, and obviously Christianity Today, which has been a moderate Christian magazine, but still they have influence in Christianity. So we don't want to end up in a situation where it's Christians against the rest of us.
We have to close now. Contact info, Rich, for you. Go for it.
Bible Study for Progressives. You can find it on any podcast service. Modern Lectionaries, just like it sounds, modernlectionaries.blogspot.com. That's my blog. I write for LA Progressive, my name, Rich Procida, P as in Paul, R-O-C as in car, I-D as in David A. And you can look me up that way. Call your senator. Make sure that your senator knows you support the removal of this president and you want a fair trial in the Senate so the American people can see and evaluate the evidence. And Trump should cooperate with that trial. This is his opportunity to defend himself, and if he refuses to cooperate, then he's just being a criminal.
Blessed be, and we'll go out today with Planet of the Light with Sarah Adams. Blessings all. Thank you again, Rich Procida, constitutional lawyer. Bible Studies for Progressives. Thanks for being on my show today, everyone. Thanks for listening, and happy holidays to all. Let's increase loving, joyful children of God, source everywhere. Thank you. Bye now.
Together bring this night of celebration. Let our hearts join together, light the hymn star of creation. We can again become a planet of light, uniting our souls as one. We are the end of the night. We can again become a planet of love, and the light will come to shine in earth as it shines above. Lack and limitation are not our birthright. We are the sons and daughters of the unlimited light, dancing in a sun of blissful surrender, unlimited love, the nourishment, remember. And the light shines in form, dancing unobstructed, free, and the light dances into you, and it dances into me. We can again become a planet of light, uniting our souls as one. We are the end of the night. We can again become a planet of love, and the light will come to shine in earth as it shines above. Shine on the earth, in the cosmos, in the inner light. Shine on, illuminating, ending this long, long night. Shine into you and shine